The form came in with 47 others, bundled in the Vethani's standard compliance packet. Gray bordered, triple stamped, smelling faintly of the mineral compound they used for ink. I'd processed enough of them by then that I could sort by category without reading. Medical discharge, reassignment, confirmed KIA. I pulled the case stack and started from the top. Corporal Hale Dren, 2nd Assault Wing, Far Reach Perimeter. Listed deceased following the collapse of Firebase Orin, 41 days prior. The Vethani form was thorough, it always was. Of death, structural cascade, confirmed by surveying drone footage, personal effects, logged and forwarded, pay record, suspended, next of kin notification, dispatched, everything in order, everything except the last field. Status, pending. I read it twice. The Vethani closure system used 4 status codes, pending, active, closed, and one I'd only seen once that roughly translated to contested at appellate tier. Pending meant the file was incomplete. I scrolled the sub-requirements. There it was, mandatory unit commander verification, subcode 7 Foxtrot, requiring a countersignature from the deceased's direct commanding officer within the same chain of service. No countersignature, no closure. No closure, no stasis, closed. Dren's commanding officer was Lieutenant Vasca Orin. Orin had died at Firebase Orin with the rest of them. I set the form aside and kept working. There were 46 others to process. The Vethani compliance officer arrived the following morning. His name translated roughly as 3rd Auditor Merrill, and he wore the cream and copper sash that indicated mid-tier administrative authority. He stood at my counter with the patience of someone accustomed to correcting clerical errors in lesser species paperwork. "The Dren record," he said. "It has not been forwarded to closure." "No," I said. "The mandatory countersignature hasn't been obtained. Countersignature is a procedural requirement." "I know. That's why I can't skip it." He was quiet for a moment. The Vethani didn't blink the way we did. Their eyes had a slow, full-lid close that happened maybe once a minute. Deliberate as punctuation. He closed them now. "The commanding officer is also deceased. The form must be rerouted to the nearest living officer in chain. That would be Captain Davin Souls, Far Reach Central Command. I've submitted the routing request." I turned the terminal to face him and showed him the request timestamp. 41 days ago. The same day the casualty packet arrived. Captain Souls has not responded. Another slow blink. "We will contact Captain Souls." "Please do," I said. "The moment that countersignature clears, the status field updates automatically and the record closes. That's how subcode 7 Foxtrot works. I didn't write it. It's in your Bureau's own compliance manual, Section 14, Paragraph 9. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he left. The 2nd Vethani was a senior auditor, a full rank above Merrill, and she arrived 3 days later with a printed escalation notice and 2 junior compliance scribes in tow. Her sash had a thin gold border. She placed the escalation notice on my counter, with the careful deliberateness of someone laying down a legal document they expected to end an argument. "The Dren record creates an administrative discontinuity in the joint theater. Casualty registry," she said. "Every unresolved pending status represents an open variable in the compliance structure. This affects consolidated reporting." "I understand," I said. "Captain Souls' countersignature will resolve it the moment it's received. Captain Souls is unreachable. His unit has been forward deployed." "Then I'll reroute side to the next officer chain." "Who would that be?" She consulted her scribe. The scribe consulted a data pad. There was a short exchange in Vethani that I didn't follow entirely, something about chain of command mapping, and a reorganization that had occurred after the Far Reach withdrawal. The upshot, as best I understood it, was that the surviving command structure from Dren's original unit had been folded into a different brigade, records of which were currently under a separate compliance jurisdiction. The jurisdictional transfer alone will take 60 to 90 standard days, the senior auditor said. Then the status field will read pending for 60 to 90 standard days. I said, "I'm sorry." "That's the procedure." The gold-bordered sash moved slightly as she breathed. Her junior scribes were writing things down. "You understand," she said slowly, "that an unresolved pending status means this individual is not administratively deceased." "I understand that the form says pending," I said. "What that means is above my grade." I thought about Hale Dren sometimes. in the slow hours between packet arrivals. Not because I'd known him. I hadn't. He was a name on a form, same as the other 46, same as the thousands that had passed through this depot in 3 years of joint narrations. But those 46 had closed. They'd become status, closed, filed, forwarded to the consolidated registry, absorbed into the long arithmetic of the war. Dren hadn't. Dren was still pending. A single open field in a system that hated open fields. And every few weeks the Vithani sent someone new to remind me of that fact. I didn't check the box, I couldn't. Subcode 7 Foxtrot was unambiguous. And I was a records clerk. I processed what came in. I applied the rules as written. The third Vithani who came was a principal compliance director, full tiers above the senior auditor, with a sash that had both gold border and a deep blue center stripe. He did not bring scribes. He came alone and sat in the chair across from my terminal, and folded his hands on the counter, and looked at me the way you look at someone you've decided to reason with rather than override. The record is an anomaly, he said. The record reflects the current state of the verification requirements, I said. An anomaly causes administrative pressure on the entire joint registry. I imagine it does. There are provisions, he said carefully, exceptional circumstances. Records that cannot be completed through standard channels due to operational disruption. I can provide you with irrelevant override authorization. I looked at him. He looked at me. What section and paragraph? I asked. He told me. I looked it up. He was right. There was an override provision. It required a formal attestation from the records officer that all standard completion channels had been exhausted, plus a 30-day waiting period from attestation to closure. I'll file the attestation today, I said. We'll be in contact at the end of 30 days. He left looking like a man who'd expected to wait longer. I filed the attestation. Then I submitted a new routing request to the reorganized brigade, flagged urgent, and CC'd my depot commander. Not because I thought it would produce a counter-signature. Because it was procedure, and subcode 7 Foxtrot said every reasonable channel had to be tried. The 30 days passed. No counter-signature arrived. I stared at the override authorization. I had the legal mechanism to close the record. I had the authority. The form was waiting for me. I put it in a hold file. I told myself it was because the routing request to the reorganized brigade was technically still within its response window. 90 days, and we were at 81. I told myself I was being thorough. I didn't look too hard at whether that was the whole truth. He came through the depot door on a Tuesday 4 years and 3 months after the casualty packet arrived. I almost didn't recognize him from the file photo. The photo showed a young man with a round face and a regulation haircut. The man who walked in was leaner in a way that had nothing to do with weight, with a scar that started below his left ear and disappeared into his collar, and eyes that had the particular quality of someone who had been very quiet for a very long time. He was wearing Samisian field jacket over what looked like the remnants of a military underlayer. He was carrying a field tag on a cord around his neck. He set it on my counter. I looked at the tag. I looked at the name. I looked at him. I heard there's a form, he said. With my name on it, I found the record. It took 4 seconds. It had never left the active queue, never been archived, never been routed to cold storage. Status pending. The last modified timestamp was 81 days after the casualty packet had arrived. When I'd submitted that final routing request, I turned the terminal to face him. He read the field. He read the status. Something moved across his face that I didn't have a word for. Commanding officer needs to countersign, I said. Captain Davin Souls. Do you know if he's reachable? Souls is in Far Reach City. He runs a shipping depot. A pause. I know him. Then I'll prepare the verification request. You can hand carry it if you'd like. It's faster than routing. He looked at the pending field for another moment. Then he looked at me. How long has it been sitting like this? 4 years, 3 months, and some days, I said, give or take. He was quiet for a long time. Long enough that the overhead panels cycled through their midday brightness adjustment and settled back. You could have closed it, he said. It wasn't an accusation. It was the observation of a man doing math in his head and arriving at a number that surprised him. There was a procedural question about whether all channels had been exhausted, I said. I was being thorough. He looked at me. I looked at him. I printed the verification request and slid it across the counter. He picked it up, he folded it once, carefully, put it in the inside pocket of the field jacket, close to his chest. I watched him walk out into the daylight. The status field still read pending. It would until Souls signed. I'd learned to be patient about that particular field. Some forms close when you check the box. Some close when the right person walks back through the door. I'd spent 4 years learning the difference between the two, and the Vethani, with all their compliance directives and gold-bordered sashes, had never once understood that the form wasn't the thing. The man was the thing. The form just hadn't caught up yet.